When is Skynet?
I don't know.
Does Charlie know?
Always 9 p.m. Saturday on 146.88. Duh.
This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is DFI PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Net is a weekly net called every Saturday night.
Okay, this is KE5ICX. I'm your alternate net control this evening. Billy's having some trouble with the audio, so as soon as she figures it out, we'll come back. So what I'll do is just finish with the preamble here. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic. We encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from net control this evening, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, which is whiskey5friedchicken.org. That's W5FC.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome and need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate this evening. This net is about 90 minutes long and structured in several parts. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, was up, space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and the 73 round. So let's start with low power and short time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low power short time.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas, low power, 5 watts.
All right, got one, W5GUS, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas, low power. Any other low power short time check-ins, please come now.
Kilo India 5, November Oscar November, Logan and Garland.
we picked up one more, KI5NON, Logan in Garland. He's also low power. Do either of you have anything you want to bring to the net now? Please come with your call. All right, let's go ahead and go to general check-ins. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving.
Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob, Farmers Branch, Texas.
November 0, Mike Delta, Ed in East Fort Worth.
W5BLT, Bill, Garland.
Kilo Fox 5, November X-Ray Romeo, John, Caddo Mills.
This is
Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
This was Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich and Rockwell, AG 5 p.m.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Whiskey Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
This is Alpha Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richardson.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
November 5, Alpha Juliet Delta, Aaron, Far North Dallas.
All right, we'll stop there for a minute. Let me get those checked in. I've got N5BB, Bill and Irving, KG5UFR, Jacob in Farmers Branch, N0MD, that's Ed in East Fort Worth, W5BLT, Bill in Garland, KF5NXR, John in Kettle Mills, K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan, AG5PM, Rich in Rockwall, K5ZBL, Mr. Bill, Farmers Branch, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda in DeSoto, AA5AH, Robert in Richardson, KF5JHA, Chaz in Mesquite, N5AJD, Aaron in Far North Dallas. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from.
Good evening, this is Alpha Golf 9 Sierra Golf, Antonio in Dallas.
All right, picked up one more. I got AG5SG, that's Antonio in Dallas. So I'm going to move over to Echolink now. If you'd like to join us on Echolink, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Echolink only.
Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu Whiskey. However.
Juliet Delta Whiskey in Norman, Oklahoma.
Golf 5, Zulu Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington.
I've got over on Echolink, KG5BZW, Jay near Weatherford, K5JDW, John and Norman, KG5ZMG, that's Joe in Arlington, N5IMS, JJ in Carrollton. Any additional check-ins, any mode, please come with your call sign name and your location.
Kilo Golf 5 Zulu India X-Ray, Joe and Wiley.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean in Fort Worth.
Okay, we picked up KG5ZIX, Joe and Wiley, and KB9SOK, Sean in Fort Worth. Any other check-ins, please come now. All right, we're up to 23 check-ins. Let's see if Miss Billy is back. KF5PD, Ash, you want to try and go ahead with the next section of the net for general announcements from KE5ICX. All right, I have her here on chat. She says she's almost there, but not quite yet. So why don't I go ahead and take any general announcements? Anybody like to join us this evening on general announcements? These could be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to hams, licensed hams. Please come with your call.
K5, KTX.
All right, K5KTX. Miss Kelly, go ahead with your announcements.
Thank you, Tom. This is K5KTX. Good evening to everyone on the net. Just wanted to let everyone know that as of a couple of days ago, the registration for the annual Texas Star Party is now live and will be available until January the 5th. So things are going to be a little bit different this year due to insurance reasons and things like that. They're going to have pretty strict COVID-19 protocols that everyone will have to abide by, but the registration is now open. The Star Party has not been held for the past 2 years, and so they are determined we're going to have it this year. The Texas Star Party is scheduled for April the 24th through May the 1st, and it will be at the Prude Ranch, which is near Fort Davis, Texas, out in far west Texas, where we have very good dark skies. The location is also very close to the McDonald Observatory, and every year, I don't know if they're going to do it this next year. I haven't really looked to see, but normally they will have tours, little more technical tours of McDonald Observatory, which is always a great tour to take. And again, the dates are April the 24th through May the 1st in Fort Davis, Texas in 2022, and you can go to texasstarparty.org to get all of the details. And that's all I've got. This is K5KTX.
Okay, thank you, Miss Kelly. Does anybody need any fills? Please come with your call. All right, any other announcements? Please come now. Okay, don't forget about the AMSAT-Net, Amateur Radio Satellite Group. There are 2 nets available here in the Dallas area, Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock. There are actually 2 nets at the same time. One is on Echolink out of Houston at 8 o'clock. You can go to AMSAT on the Echolink frequency. They have their own channel. Or you can listen to a live audio link on amsatnet.com. Also, at 8 o'clock here on this repeater, we have the Dallas AMSAT-Net East net at 8 o'clock. Tom N5HYP is the net control usually, although he has guest net controls as well. All are welcome. That's also a Q&A section, whereas the Houston one is not. It's all information only, but if you have questions about actual amateur radio satellite, working those satellites, or technical information, this is the net you want to be on. The only day it's not on is first Tuesday of the month, which is the ARC Club night. So Tom's in that meeting and cannot do the AMSAT East. There's also a Dallas AMSAT-Net West every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, which is 147.140 megahertz, also with a PL tone of 110.9 with a positive offset. We also have DARC nets available. And there are plenty of them on Mondays. The first week at 7 o'clock, we have Ham Fixin's net, which is a net involving anything having to do with foods. Preparing it, tips, recipes, you name it. It's at 7 o'clock on Mondays. First week. Second week is MCOM 101, N5KRG. That would be Kevin Grantham. Gives a nice introduction into emergency communications and some of the things you need to know if you want to be a part of that. It's non-denominational, which means any group that you currently are with, or if you're looking for a group, that'd be a good net to be a part of. 7 o'clock on Mondays. Third week is the second helping of Ham Fixins. You know all about that. Fourth week is GeekNet, where we expand beyond just amateur radio and into everything geeky. And that's NT5TM. Tony is the net control for that. And then the fifth week, and I think we have one next Monday, this coming Monday, I should say, is the surprise net. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. So there's on-air participation is always encouraged. And generally speaking, it's usually a contest, and there's always a winner, and everybody else is a loser. No, everybody's a winner, but somebody's a bigger winner than the other winners. Also, we have, let's see, on Fridays, we have Search City Simulation at 8 o'clock. This is about emergency communication, radio communications with CERT-trained amateur radio operators. This one is hosted by Melissa, KI5GRH, who's the net control, and come on by to visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday, Search City at 8 p.m. And then, of course, on Saturdays, we have the Night of Nets, starting with TechNet at 7 to 8, all things amateur radio related. We also have Skynet at 9 o'clock, and then the Afterglow Movie Net after that, which I'll give the information on in a bit. And then finally, first and third Sundays is the Dallas Amateur Radio Club Meeting on the Air, or MODA. We have also, I forgot to mention that, that just tells you everything about what's going on with the club and club activities. Finally, we have daily the ARRL National Traffic System Training Net. That's at 6:30, 7 days a week, 6:30 p.m. that is. Or welcome to check in if you'd like to learn about how to be a part of a formalized net. That's a great place to be. You'll learn all about it, and you cannot make a mistake because it is a training net. So I did mention that there is an Afterglow Movie Net this evening at 10:30. We watch a good or not so good or terrible movie, and then we review it from 10:30 until midnight. So here's my highly accurate information on tonight's Afterglow movie. Roy Tomlin and his friend Lucas looked intently at their phone when an Amber Alert announced a missing child. Strangely, they had a child in their hotel room. They had no idea where he came from. It seemed like he came with the room, there to clear the waste baskets and be summoned for clean towels. It was obvious Roy and Lucas didn't stay at hotels very often, and they then attested their assumption and ordered the kid to bring them ice. The kid sat there dumbfounded. It was obvious this was going nowhere. So join us for the Afterglow Movie Net at 10:30 p.m. called the Midnight Special from 2016, which surprisingly I kind of liked. So if you get a chance to see it, you probably will have to do it during this net. If you haven't, by all means see it. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website at w5fc.org for additional information. All right, next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Events, where and when you can look through a telescope. So I'm going to ask, well, we have several people checked in here. Who would like to do the honors on the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas? Please come with you.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha.
Well, I believe that is Chaz, so we'll let him do the honor. So K5JHA, the net is yours.
Why, thank you, Thomas. It was a pleasure and an honor seeing a lot of you at Turkey Trot on Thursday. And if you were on air about 5:30, I did about a dozen different Thanksgiving jokes. I'm sorry you missed it. Oh, well. Okay, the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meeting will be held on Friday, January the 28th at 7:30 p.m. We don't have a regular meeting in December. We usually have a holiday event. We're going to have an awards banquet virtually this year in December. The meeting on January the 28th will be held on Zoom. Hopefully we'll get to live meetings sometime, but with the new Omicron variant, who knows? Dr. Noah Pearson from Montana State University will be the featured speaker on January 28th. TAS Club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of the meeting. And Saturday night public observing sessions have been placed on hold for quite some time because of COVID. One of the reasons that Skynet was picked to be on Saturday nights was so that there was an opportunity for live reports from the TAS public observing sessions that are also held on Saturday nights. But since that has been happening, we haven't had live reports for about 2 years. Check the TAS website, texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And this is KF5JHA, back toward net control.
Thank you, Chaz. Does anybody need any fills? Please come with your call. Okay, let's go ahead and move on down to the National Space Society of Dallas events and activities. So, Bill, N5BB, I know you're checked in and you're the guy. Tell us about what's going on with the National Space Society from KE5ICX.
Well, I am the guy. Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. I am the membership director of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. Our next chapter meeting will be virtual on WebEx, and it will be on the second Sunday of the month as normal. So this will be Sunday afternoon, December the 12th, and the WebEx session will start at 3:30, and the actual presentation will start at 4 p.m. If you would like to participate, you can do so by getting a guest pass from me, since I host the WebEx session. You can send me an email to space@byram.net. That's space@byrom.net, or n5bb@arrl.net. Break. This is N5BB. I'll be happy to send you a login credentials if you want to visit our meeting. So the big thing happening for our group is the DART mission, the Double Asteroid Redirect Test, which Brenda spoke very well about last week on Skynet. And Brenda is also a member of the National Space Society North Texas chapter. And DART did launch successfully on Wednesday, early Wednesday morning, local time here, November the 24th, a little less than 4 days ago. I got up early and I watched the before and after presentation there on NASA TV. It was very, very useful. If you did see that presentation, the co-host, along with the NASA PR guy that was hosting that, providing a update on it, was Dr. Kelly Fast. She is in the NASA Planetary Defense Office, a manager, and currently it's planned for her to be our speaker at the National Space Society December the 12th meeting. At our November meeting on Sunday, November the 14th, our speaker was Dr. Andy Rifkin from Johns Hopkins University, who's one of the principal investigators on the DART mission. So we're doing our chapter a whole lot, providing information about what's going on with that mission, which is really cool. Planetary defense. Let's see. This is in 5BB. Other hot things coming up, of course, is that the launch of the Hubble of the James Webb Space Telescope has been delayed by 4 days because something broke during transport, some mechanical thing involving the support for the spacecraft during transport, and they want to be able to do an in-depth evaluation of it before they approve it for launch. It will be launched from French Guiana, and the current date is no earlier than December the 22nd. A lot of the astronomy community is on pins and needles. They're really wanting to get the James Webb Space Telescope up to the Earth-Sun L2 point, where it's nearly in the shadow of the Earth. With it, it's got a big parasol on it, umbrella to protect it, shield it from the heat from the Earth and the Sun and the Moon. And it'll be a great addition to astronomy with its middle infrared telescope. Right now, the National Space Society has no other local events. We're waiting for the COVID thing to disappear a little bit more. That's all I've got for now. This is in 5BB. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. And this is KE5ICX. I'm alternate net control. I believe Miss Billy is ready. So KF5PDS. Next up is your segment, and the net is back to you. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you very much, Tom. I really do appreciate you stepping up and getting things going. Sorry for all the difficulties here, but you know, sometimes things just happen. And I am back up and running. So thank you very much, Tom. Alternate. I appreciate you so much. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, and just to add on to what Bill says, thank you very much, Bill, for your fine report on the National Space Society of North Texas. The National Space Society of North Texas has an active Facebook page. Just type in National Space Society of North Texas into the search box and request access, and you'll receive meeting reminders and club activities. I do have one announcement that I wanted to make tonight before I get into my NCS discussion topic of the evening, and that was to announce that the 3916 nets have an active SantaNet. So every year on 3916, we give good little boys and girls a chance to talk to Santa Claus at the North Pole. It is indeed a magical experience to experience kids talking with Santa through the magic of amateur radio. The SantaNet is on the air every night from November 26th through December 24th at 7:15 p.m. Central Time. To participate in the SantaNet, just have your kids prepared to tell Santa their top 2 or 3 gift wishes. They do have a pre-net check-in. Pre-net check-ins are welcome. You can reserve a spot with Santa by making a pre-net check-in. You can check in either on the air starting at 7 p.m. Central or online at www.cqsanta.com. Ho, 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 and Merry Christmas from the 3916 net. I believe they also put a announcement on the DARC Skynet Facebook page, so you can read about that there as well. All right, next up is the discussion topic of the evening. So for my choice this evening, I've chosen an article from space.com written by Joe Rao last year, November 26, 2020, the first Thanksgiving night sky. What did the Pilgrims see when they looked up? And in this article, they have a great picture of the Cape Cod area taken in 2007 by Expedition 16 astronauts aboard the International Space Station. This digital image shows Cape Cod, where the Pilgrims first set foot. The image credited as NASA JSC. What did the starry sky look like on the occasion of the very first Thanksgiving? And what was the state of astronomy back then? It may come as a surprise to many of you that almost everything we know about the first Thanksgiving comes from a single eyewitness report. September 1620, when the Mayflower finally set sail after 3 abortive attempts from England, there were 102 passengers and a crew of about 30 on board. When they made landfall on Cape Cod in early November, these pilgrims continued their journey to what ultimately would become Plymouth by late December, eventually forming the first permanent settlement of Europeans in New England. Sadly, about half of those passengers who made that perilous trip on the Mayflower died during the harsh winter of 1621. But those who survived were able to secure peace treaties with neighboring Native American tribes and built a largely self-sufficient economy within 5 years. It was a man by the name of Edward Winslow, one of those on board the Mayflower and who survived that first frigid winter, who wrote about the first Thanksgiving. Today in the United States, we celebrate Thanksgiving on the 4th Thursday in November. But 400 years ago, the Pilgrims' first Thanksgiving took place over a 3-day interval. It was a veritable feast that was considered a celebration of the harvest. Fortunately, there is uncertainty as to exactly when this celebration took place. Ironically, for an event that is revered among the annual holidays today, Winslow's account, written in the form of a letter, did not provide a specific date, and his description was relatively brief, but most reference sources today indicate that presumably occurred sometime between late September and mid-November. William Bradford, Plymouth's governor in 1621, also wrote of the event in Of Plymouth Plantation, his chronicle of the colony, but he too gave it relatively short shrift and did not write about his recollections until more than 2 decades after the feast itself. Owing to the confusion, the dates referred to by Bradford were made using the old Julian calendar. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII refined the Julian calendar mathematically because the Julian calendar system had not perfectly calculated leap years and had caused the calendar dates to become out of sync with celestial and religious events. The difference between the Julian and Gregorian calendars amounted to 10 days. Most of the civilized world was using the Gregorian calendar, but England, unhappy with the Church of Rome, refused to go along with the new calendar. That is why the date when the Mayflower finally began its journey across the Atlantic was listed as September 6th Old Style, whereas in the Gregorian calendar that date is recognized as September 16th. They made landfall on November 9th Old Style. Not until more than a century later, in 1752, would England and its American colonies convert to the Gregorian calendar. As far as the Pilgrims' knowledge of astronomy was concerned, celestial navigation took the form of measuring the altitude, or should be latitude, of the North Star Polaris at night and the sun at noon. Incidentally, Polaris wasn't a good pole star as it is today, being 2.8 degrees from the celestial pole due to the wobbling of Earth's axis, known as precession. In our time, Polaris is only 2/3 of a degree away from the celestial pole. Navigation in those days was imprecise, to say the least. While latitude was easy enough to determine on a clear night or sunny day, determining longitude was at best an educated guess. Stormy weather encountered during the second half of their 66-day voyage pushed the Mayflower off course. Their intended destination was the mouth of the Hudson River, which was considered to be North Virginia back then. But as we all know now, they actually ended up near Cape Cod, roughly several hundred miles to the northeast. We don't know if anyone brought along a telescope, a relatively new invention developed by a Dutch spectacle maker just a decade before. The harvest feast might have occurred as late as mid-November, and since our own Thanksgiving celebrations also occur that month, let's turn our minds backward to November 5th, 1621, Old Style, which corresponds to November 15th, 1621, on our current Gregorian calendar. What would the night sky have looked like? They were, in many respects, familiar skies. The constellations, the patterns that the stars form in the heavens, were the same then as now. Those stars are so distant that although they move through space at speeds measured in miles per second, and though most are traveling helter-skelter in different directions, their movements are not apparent to the human eye even over a span of 400 years. But there were also wanderers in the sky, the moon and the planets. On this selected night, as soon as darkness fell, a lovely sight awaited those looking low towards the southwest. There we would have seen a slender sliver of a crescent moon, and hovering a few degrees to its lower left would be the dazzling evening star, the planet Venus. Both would have been in view for a couple of hours after sunset. After they left the sky, we could look for Mars, shining brightly with a yellow-orange tinge against the dim stars of the constellation Capricornus, the sea goat. Mars set in the southwest at mid-evening around 9 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, two more planets were ascending the east-northeast sky to take its place. Both are in the constellation of Gemini, the twins. First comes Jupiter, followed by Saturn. Reminiscent of what is playing out in our current evening sky, this article is written in 2020, so it says current evening sky of 2020, with both planets evident after sundown in our southwest sky. Back in 1621, these two bright luminaries mixed with the brilliant stars of the impending winter season led by Orion the Hunter. In all, it would have been a glorious celestial scene for any of the pilgrims who gazed skyward during that first Thanksgiving. See many stars by light that started its immense journey before our country was born. Are there any stars that are just 400 light years away? Because of the difficulty in measuring parallaxes, the distant objects changing positions when viewed from Earth, astronomers cannot determine such distances with an accuracy of 1 light year. However, the 2020 Observer's Handbook of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, in its table of 288 brightest stars, lists two that are above the horizon on November evenings that are 400 light years away. Third magnitude Algenib, the star in the lower left corner of the Great Square of Pegasus, and second magnitude Almach, at the end of the chain of stars marking the constellation of Andromeda. If you see either of these stars on your next clear night, keep in mind that you are looking at light that started on its journey to Earth about the same time that the first pilgrims were arriving in what we now call the state of Massachusetts. And this article is on space.com, First Thanksgiving Night Sky, written by Joe Rao. Joe Rao serves as an instructor and guest lecturer at New York's Hayden Planetarium. He writes about astronomy for Natural History Magazine, The Farmer's Almanac, and other publications. You can follow on Twitter at space.com and on Facebook. This is KFI-PDS, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. This time, I'd like to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll see if we have any more check-ins, and then you have my permission to turn the net over to Chaz for What's Up. So to KE5ICX from KFI's PDS.
I'll do exactly that, Miss Billy. This is KE5ICX. I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you are transmitting from. No one. Well, that's unusual. Well, we got a pretty healthy check-ins on the first round. So let's go to Chaz, KF5JHA, to find out what's up from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Billy. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree's in astrophysics. I'm in charge of the astrophysics lab and the geology lab at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus, and we call this segment of Skynet What's Up. Slide master, that would be Tom. Slide number 2, please. Let's see now. Oh, no, that's not right. Oh, I didn't rewrite that section. Oh, I've got to go skipping down through here. Let's see now. On November 27th, that's today, the moon is at third quarter phase. On December the 4th, the moon phase is new. Also on December the 4th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth. The moon is at its first quarter phase on December the 10th. Slide master, slide number 3, please. On December the 2nd, on December the 2nd, there is a very wide conjunction of the moon and Mars in the early morning sky, and that's the southeastern sky, around 6 a.m. Slide number 4, please. Now, on 3 sequential nights, there will be different conjunctions of the moon and different planets. So on December the 6th, in the evening sky around 7 p.m., look for the conjunction of the moon and Venus in the southwestern sky. Slide number 5. The very next night, on December the 7th, around 7 p.m., look for the moon and Saturn in conjunction in the southwestern evening sky. And slide number 6. And the night after that, on December the 8th, around 7 p.m., you should be able to find Jupiter and the moon in conjunction in the southwestern evening sky. Jupiter and Venus are going to be bright. Saturn won't be that bright. Slide number 7, please. On the night of December 13th and 14th, a Geminid meteor shower peaks with a predicted maximum up to 150 meteors per hour of observing, but the moon will be close to being at full phase, so the fainter meteors won't be seen. The best time to observe meteors and meteor showers is usually the hour just before morning twilight begins, because the morning side of the Earth is what is running in to the debris stream. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 8, please. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The next one will be on January the 28th because they have a holiday party in December at 7:30 p.m. The meeting will be held on Zoom. Hopefully we'll have live meetings soon. Dr. Noah Pearson from Montana State University will be the featured speaker, and past club members will receive an email link to the Zoom meeting in advance of that meeting. The observing sessions for TASS have been placed on hold, but if you'd like to find out more information about the TASS club meetings or public observing sessions, go to texasastro.org. Slide Master, slide number 9, please. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question, or someone here in the net might know the answer to your question. Come now with your call side if you have a question. Must be kind of quiet out there. So, as the moon wanes at the end of November, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next week, well, actually, I'm going to be doing another Skynet segment in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5JHA. Back to our net control. I think it's going to go back to Billy.
Thank you very much, Chaz. And yes, we'll hear from you here in just a little bit. Next up is space exploration of space history. I don't have an indication of whose turn it is. Normally there's one's highlighted, but I'm not seeing that on my document. So Tom, can you confirm with me whose turn is it for space exploration?
Yes, my mistake. It's Brenda, WB50ZL.
Thank you very much, Tom. All right, so then for space exploration and space history, I will turn that over to Brenda, WB50ZL. The net is yours.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB50ZL. First, in space exploration news, surprising discovery of 2 ancient galaxies exposes our cloudy view of the cosmos. The presence of 2 previously undetected galaxies, some 29 billion light years away, suggests our understanding of the early universe is upsettingly deficient. So, introducing Rebels 12-2 and Rebels 29-2, 2 galaxies that until very recently we didn't even know existed. The light from these galaxies took 13 billion years to get here, and these objects formed shortly after the Big Bang. The ongoing expansion of the universe places these ancient galaxies at roughly 29 billion light years from Earth. New research published in Nature suggests Rebels 12-2 and Rebels 29-2 had escaped detection up until this point because our view of these galaxies is clouded by thick layers of cosmic dust. The Hubble Space Telescope, as mighty as it is, could not peer through the celestial gaze. It took the ultra-sensitive ALMA radio telescope in Chile to spot the galaxies in what turned out to be a fortuitous accident. We were looking at a sample of very distant galaxies, which we already knew existed from the Hubble Space Telescope, and then we noticed that 2 of them had a neighbor that we didn't expect to be there at all. Pascal Oish, an astronomer from the Cosmic Dawn Center at the Niels Bohr Institute in Copenhagen, explained in a statement, as both of these neighboring galaxies are surrounded by dust, some of their light is blocked, making them invisible to Hubble. and news on the James Webb Space Telescope. It's ready for flight and on track for a launch of December 22nd at the earliest. An incident occurred during operations at the Satellite Preparation Facility in Kourou, French Guiana, performed under Arianespace overall responsibility. Technicians were preparing to attach Webb to the launch vehicle adapter, which is used to integrate the observatory with the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket. A sudden, unplanned release of a clamp band, which secures Webb to the launch vehicle adapter, caused a vibration throughout the observatory. Additional testing was conducted following the incident and launch preparations, and these tests are now complete. A NASA-led anomaly review board concluded that no observatory components were damaged in the incident. NASA has given approval to begin observatory fueling operations on Thursday, November 25th, a process that will take about 10 days. Next, promising new electric iodine thruster passes key test in orbit. A new electric thruster that blasts out iodine has now been successfully tested in orbit, a milestone that could help lead to significantly tinier, simpler, cheaper, and higher performance engines for satellites and spacecraft, a new study reports. Conventional rockets use chemical reactions to drive propulsion. In contrast, electric thrusters produce thrust by using electric power to accelerate propellants, such as electrically charged ions, away from a spacecraft. Electric propulsion generates much less thrust than chemical rockets, making it too weak to launch a spacecraft from Earth's surface. But electric thrusters are highly efficient at producing thrust, given the small amount of propellant they carry. This makes them very useful for spacecraft that are already in space. We have a few birthdays. For some reason it was kind of sparse this week, but it doesn't matter the people that had birthdays. Ian Bluford, November 22nd, 1942. He flew on STS-8, STS-61A, STS-39, and STS-53. Owen Garriott, November 22nd, 1930, Skylab 3, STS-9. Henry Hartsfield, November 21st, 1933, STS-4, STS-41D, and STS-61A. Richard R. Arnold, November 26th, 1963, STS-119, Soyuz MS-08, Expedition 5556. And Jim Weatherby, November 27th, 1952, STS-32, 52, 63, 86, 102, and 113. All right, history, space history. November 24th, 1639 was the first observation of transit of Venus by Jeremiah Horrocks and William Crabtree. It helped establish the size of the solar system. And Venus was the first planet to be explored by a spacecraft. NASA's Mariner 2 successfully flew by and scanned the cloud-covered world on December 14th, 1962. Since then, numerous spacecraft from the U.S. and other space agencies have explored Venus, including NASA's Magellan, which mapped the planet's surface with radar. November 26, 2018, NASA's InSight mission landed on Mars. It was the first robotic explorer to study the inner space of Mars, its crust, mantle, and core. And November 26, 2011, Mars Curiosity launched. Curiosity landed in August 2012 for its mission to study the ancient habitability and the potential for life on the red planet. November 24th, 1960, splashed down in the Pacific Ocean, marking the end of Al Bean, Pete Conrad, and Dick Gordon's 10-day journey to the moon and back. And that's all I have. Back to OZL.
Thank you very much, Brenda. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is back to Chaz, KF5JHA, giving us the report on Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So, Chaz, KF5JHA, the net is yours.
Thank you, Billy. It's kind of something that I'm used to because you were net control at the Turkey Trot, too, so you're net control tonight. That's great. Slide Master, slide number 11, please. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week from almost its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Such are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations. So Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen from Texas in a year. In her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Cassiopeia the Queen. Now, I've told you the myth behind Cassiopeia in the past. Cassiopeia is the queen, Cepheus is the king, Andromeda is the princess, Perseus is the hero, Pegasus is the flying horse, Cetus is the sea monster, and all of these characters are constellations in the sky. So this time we're going to talk about Cassiopeia. Slide Master, slide number 12. This is what everyone's been waiting for the entire evening, I'm sure. So these jokes are usually related to the constellation of the week, and so that tradition continues. What will they play at a queen's funeral? Royalty-free music, of course. The lobby of my local Dairy Queen was closed due to short staff, because of COVID. They should have hired taller employees. What did the king say when the queen gifted him a fool for his birthday? I have no use for one of these, but it was a nice gesture. If there is a king and a queen-size mattress, where does the prince sleep? Of course, on the air mattress. What role does Queen Latifah play in The Equalizer? It's a TV show. I don't know if you've seen this, but what role does Queen Latifah play in The Equalizer? The vigilante. If you haven't seen the show, you don't understand the joke that's involved here. And the last one for this part is, what song does the Queen of England sing when she takes her clothes off? London Bridge is falling down. I gotta be careful, I'm not supposed to sing on the air. This is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 13. Gamma Cassiopeia is a unstable blue giant star which throws off shells of material at random intervals. Gamma Cassiopeia is a variable, but its brightness variations are unpredictable. They're not regular. There are two patches of faint nebulosity, IC59 and IC63, which appear to be associated with this star. Miss Carolyn probably had several observations of this star because she was an avid observer of variable stars. I recommend visiting the AAVSO, that's the American Association of Variable Star Observers, for more information about variable stars and how to observe them. Eta Cassiopeia is a double star found between Alpha and Gamma Cassiopeia. William Herschel discovered the star's binary nature in 1779. This binary is easy to split with small telescopes. The primary looks yellow, and the companion appears to be orange. We use this star as one of the observations for our astronomy students at Brookhaven. Slide number 14, please. Hi, John. Thank you for the compliment. He's complimenting me on my great jokes over on Echolink. Slide number 14 is M52. Salt and Pepper Cluster is an open cluster discovered by Messier himself in 1774, appearing as a fuzzy patch in binoculars and a small telescope where 100 individual stars are seen with some different colors. An 80-millimeter short focal length refractor telescope, M52, is an easily noticeable round fuzzball at 8 power with a single foreground star visible near one edge. 16 power makes it bigger and brighter, but with no resolution. At 24 power, it starts to resolve with some of the brighter stars. Slide number 15, please. This object is M103. This is a cluster. It's not very dense. Binoculars resolve the brightest stars in this group, making it a nice object for both binoculars and small telescopes. The cluster has somewhat of a triangular outline, and therefore has been noted as a fan shape or having a Christmas tree shape by different observers. A number of the stars have different colors, making for some nice color contrast. And an 80-millimeter f5 telescope, the triangular outline is easily noticeable, with the triangular surrounded by many fainter stars, which are primarily unresolvable. In other words, they look like a haze. One bright star that is not part of the triangle is a yellow-orange. Other stars are white or blue-white. Slide number 16, please. NGC 457 is also known as the OWL cluster or the ET cluster, another very nice open cluster for binoculars or small telescopes. The distinctive outline of this cluster can be made out with the smallest of telescopes. Many folks see the cluster as an owl with outstretched wings. Others see it as an ET, the extraterrestrial, holding his arms out. In either case, two bright stars, Phi 1 and Phi 2 Cassiopeia, form the eyes. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 17, please. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Cassiopeia, the Queen. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 70, well, it should be about 73 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year from the Astronomical League. Slide number 18, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Cassiopeia, the Queen. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research on words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal from them for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. And next time I'll take a look at another constellation in this whole myth that we've been talking about, Andromeda, the Princess. And this is KF5, JHA. This is back to net control, KF5, PDS 73, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you very much, Chaz. Yeah, I remember one time at a star party, I showed some little kids the ET cluster, and they hadn't seen E.T. yet, but Wally was pretty new, and they thought he looked like Wally. So I thought that was pretty funny. It was really cute. And the mother, she leaned over. She's like, "I'll be showing them E.T. very soon, so they'll be able to recognize it as E.T. as soon as they see the movie." So I thought that. Next up is space launches for this week. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX. The net is yours.
Hey, thank you, Miss Billy. And I have a few actually through the month. So we'll start with November 30th, December 1st overnight. The ELS Synopsis, French Guiana launch Ariane Space Soyuz rocket, designated VS-26, will launch an mission from the Guiana Space Center in South America. The Soyuz will carry 2 Galileo full operational capability satellites for Europe's Galileo navigation constellation. The Soyuz 2.1B Soyuz STB rocket will use it for that upper stage. On December 1st, we have a Falcon 9 launching yet another Starlink mission, 4-3 in fact, from Launch Complex 48, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. A launch group of approximately 53 Starlink Internet satellites. On December 4th, we have a launch from Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Center. This will be the STP-3 rideshare mission, which will launch STPS, SAT-6 satellite and several small satellites. SAT-6 hosts several payloads and experiments, including the National Nuclear Security Administration Space and Atmospheric Burst Reporting System, or SABRS-3, payload and NASA's Laser Communications Relay Demonstration, LCRD, experiment. The rocket will 551 vehicle configuration with 5-meter fairing, 5 solid rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. On December 8th, from Kazakhstan at the Balkador Cosmodrome, the Russian government Soyuz rocket will launch a crewed Soyuz MS-20 spacecraft to the International Space Station on a 12-day flight with cosmonauts Alexander Mazurkin and space tourist Yusaku Mezawa and Yoso Harino. The rocket will fly in the Soyuz 2.1A configuration. On December 9th, there'll be a launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. You guessed it, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch NASA's Imaging X-ray Polarimetry Explorer IXPE, exploits the polarization state of light from astrophysical sources to provide insight into our understanding of X-ray production in objects such as neutron stars and pulsar wind nebulae, as well as stellar and supermassive black holes. On December 12th, we have a Proton launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The government Proton rocket will launch the Express AMU-3 and Express AMU-7 communication satellites for the Russian Satellite Communications Company. Built by ISS Reshetsnev, the satellites will provide advanced communications, television, and radio broadcasting services to millions of users in Russia and other countries. On December 18th, we have, are you ready? Unless it's been delayed, which I think it has, the James Webb Space Telescope. This will launch from ELA-3 at Kourou, French Guiana. The Ariane 5 ECA rocket, designated VA-256, to launch the James Webb Space Telescope, a flagship observatory developed by NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency. JWST is the largest space telescope ever built, with a deployable mirror measuring 21.3 feet in diameter and 4 scientific instruments to observe the universe in infrared wavelengths. The mission will study the formation of galaxies, stars, and planets. The Ariane 5 ECA rocket will launch JWST on a trajectory toward its operating position at the L2 Lagrange point, nearly 1 million miles from Earth. On December 18th, 19th, overnight, Turksac 5B will launch. This is from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. This rocket will launch a Turksat 5B communication satellite for Turksat, a Turkish satellite operator built by Airbus Defence and Space with significant Turkish contributions. Turksat 5B satellite will provide broadband services over a wide coverage area, including Turkey, the Middle East, and large regions of Africa. On the 20th of December, we've got a launch from Plesnik Cosmodrome in Russia. Russian government Angara A5 rocket will launch its third orbital test flight with the Perseus, or Persea, upper stage derived from Russia's venerable Block DM upper stage. Russian officials have not identified the payload for this mission. On December 21st, we have the SpaceX CRS-24 Falcon 9 launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. Will launch a Dragon 2 spacecraft on its fourth cargo resupply to the International Space Station. The flight is the 24th mission by SpaceX conducted under commercial resupply services contract with NASA. I'm almost done. Yeah, there's a lot of launches this month. Let's see here. On December 21st, we have from the Takashima Space Center in Japan, a Japanese H-2A rocket will launch the Inmarsat 6F1 communication satellite from London-based Inmarsat. Built by the Airbus Defence and Space, the satellite carries L-band and Ka-band payloads to provide mobile communication services to airplanes and ships. The H-2A rocket will fly in a 204 configuration with 4 strap-on solid rocket boosters. We also have the Starlink 2-3. We'd already talked about 2-4, interestingly, but this one will launch at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California from SLC-4E. Batch of Starlink internet satellites from Vandenberg. This mission is expected to deploy 51 Starlink satellites. And then finally, that's it, December 27th, the Soyuz OneWeb 12 launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The Soyuz rocket will launch 34 satellites into orbit for OneWeb, which is developing a constellation of hundreds of satellites in low Earth orbit for low latency broadband communications. Soyuz 2.1B rocket will use the Fregat upper stage. Phew, that's a lot. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX.
Well, that is a lot of launches. Thank you for that extremely thorough report. We have a lot of things to look forward to. Next up is recent astronomical discoveries. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours.
Thank you. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled, 1 year on this giant blistering hot planet is just 16 hours long. Among the hunt for planets beyond our solar system has turned up more than 4,000 far-flung worlds orbiting stars thousands of light years from Earth. These extrasolar planets are a veritable menagerie, from rocky super-Earths and miniature Neptunes to colossal gas giants. Among the more confounding planets discovered to date were hot Jupiters, massive balls of gas that are about the size of our own Jovian planet, but that zing around their stars in less than 10 days, in contrast to Jupiter's plodding 12-year orbit. Scientists have discovered about 400 hot Jupiters to date. But exactly how these weighty whirlers came to be remains one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in planetary science. Now astronomers have discovered one of the most extreme ultra-hot Jupiters, a gas giant that is about 5 times Jupiter's mass and blitzes around its star in just 16 hours. The planet's orbit is the shortest of any known gas giant to date. Due to its extremely tight orbit and proximity to its star, the planet's day side is estimated to be at around 3,500 Kelvin, or close to 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit, about as hot as a small star. This makes the planet designated TOI 2109b, the second hottest detected so far. Judging from its properties, astronomers believe that TOI 2909b is in the process of orbital decay or spiraling into its star like bath water circling the drain. Its extremely short orbit is predicted to cause the planet to spiral toward its star faster than other hot Jupiters. The discovery, which was made initially by NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, TESS, an MIT-led mission, presents a unique opportunity for astronomers to study how planets behave as they are drawn in and swallowed by their star. In 1 or 2 years, if we're lucky, we may be able to detect how the planet moves closer to its star, says Ian Wong, lead author of the discovery, who was a postdoc at MIT during the study and has since moved to NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. In our lifetime, we will not see the planet fall into its star, but give it another 10 million years, and this planet might not be here. This discovery was reported today in the Astronomical Journal as a result of the work of large collaboration that included members of MIT's TESS science team and research from around the world. There is more. That's only about half the article. If you want to read it all, you can go to ScienceDaily.com. I think we're running a little bit short of time. Okay, back to net, WB50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. We're not that short on time. I'm going to go ahead and turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll give us the report on what we can see through the heavens above, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, and then if you could do a check-in round and give me a final count for this evening's net, I'd appreciate it. So to KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
All right, very good, Miss Billy. This is KE5ICX. I get all the information from heavens above, which, by the way, if you're watching the video stream, you'll see there, along with some advertising, of course. You just plug in your longitude and latitude, or plug in your city of choice, and it will plug in your longitude and latitude for you. There isn't a lot this week. I've got only a few things. I've got the X-37B, which is the super secret winged space plane, the unmanned one that the Space Forces had in orbit now for, I think it's coming up on at least 2 years. So let's see. We have one pass, December 5th, that looks pretty good, 0.3 magnitude at 1810 or 610 in the evening. Out of the southwest, reaches its highest point at 68 degrees at 1813, and then falls at 1814 to the east-northeast. The only other one I got is a couple, well, several for Envisat. Envisat is our always go-to. Since it's in polar orbit, there's always a few good passes for the week. We have on, let's see, November 30th, we have a good pass. This is a 2.9 magnitude at 5:26 in the morning out of the north-northeast. Reaches it directly overhead at 5:31 a.m., and it'll fall at 5:36 to the south-southwest. Then we have on December 3rd, looks like we've got a good one here, 3.2 magnitudes, a little bit on 5:15 in the morning out of the north-northeast, reaches its highest point at 5:20 at 70 degrees, and then falls to the south at 5:25. Let's see here, and then finally 5th and 6th, I've got 2.9 magnitude, 5:40 a.m. out of the north. It reaches its highest point at 5:45 at 64 degrees, then falls at 5:50 to the south-southwest. Then finally, December 6th, there's one 3.7 magnitude 5:03 in the morning out of the northeast, reaches its highest point at 53 degrees at 5:08, and then it falls at 5:15 due south at 5:13. So you can get all that information from heavens above. There's a little dash between the heavens and above, and just plug that information in. It's also good for amateur satellite information as well. So if you're looking for something that doesn't require a program, you just go to the website, as I just mentioned, and you can plug in just about anything. There's also real-time call-outs as well of satellites, including the International Space Station and its orientation in space, which is pretty cool as well. It's a very interesting website. They continue to build upon it. All right, I will take final check-ins for this evening. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, your location, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo, India, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, Thomas in Euless with no traffic.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony at East Dallas.
Okay, I've got KI5JCM, Thomas in Euless, and I got NT5TM, Tony in East Dallas. Any other additional check? Oh, and I forgot to mention Philip, KI5KTZ. I got you on a previous round. I think you're still there, hopefully, but I do have you checked in. Anyone else like a check-in, please come in. All right, Miss Billy, we're up to 26. Back to you.
Thank you very much. And I see that Kelly, K5KTX, has an announcement. So, Kelly, if you'd like to go ahead with your announcement, please come now.
Thanks, Billy. This is K5KTX again. I meant to include this on my previous announcement and just I couldn't remember what the second thing was, and now I remember what it was. So, one of my very favorite apps that I use related to astronomy is Sky Safari Pro. And then there's several different versions. I think there's a free version, there's a medium one, and then there's a pro version. And they currently are having a sale through December the 15th for half off for that particular app. And if you want a really powerful, very helpful app, I highly recommend it, Sky Safari Pro. I believe it's available both on Apple as well as Android devices. And again, they have some other levels for that one, but I use the Pro version. So there's lots of fantastic features in that. I have no affiliation with Sky Safari. I have met the people that make it. They've gone to the Texas Star Party several times. But anyway, I just thought I would make that announcement in case you're looking for a good app to use with astronomy. Sky Safari Pro is on sale for half price. And that's all I've got. This is K5KTX.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that announcement. That's a really great deal. And I appreciate you bringing that to the net. Does any other check-in stations have any other remarks or questions before we close tonight's net? If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing any, so tonight we had 26 hams participating on the air, so thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5 TDS, Billy. I'll be closing the net at 22:26 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, following Skynet is the Afterglow movie net, where tonight's movie for discussion is 2016's Midnight Special. Take care, and 7-3, everybody.
And we'll be back in about 5 minutes to start the net, so go take care of business, come back in about 5 minutes, and we'll be discussing the movie from 2016, Midnight Special. This is KE5ICX.
Normal state.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net.
Do you have anyone interested in being net control this evening for the Afterglow movie net? It's double pay tonight.
This is N5BB. If you bend my arm and make me scream uncle, I guess I could be net control. This is Inside BB.
Okay, I'll let you be net control. I don't mind at all. And like I said, double pay tonight.
Well, that's what I'm looking for. The problem is that post office delays means I don't know which decade I'll get the double pay in my mailbox, Tom.
Don't worry, I'll call you and let you know the minute it hits your mailbox. So don't worry, you won't miss it.
I got 2 packages delivered to me today. Whoopie-doo. The first was an Amazon one. They delivered before daybreak. They go crazy this time of the year. I didn't need it that fast, but the Amazon Prime stuff, they just zip out. Okay, are you ready for me to start? Or should we wait a few more minutes to give people a time to do their preparations?
And 0MD.
There was somebody in there. Anytime you want to start, you're net control. 5 minutes have passed, so whenever you'd like to start.
N0MD, were you volunteering to be net control?
Negative. Now, it's my first time listening to the net. Someone directed me here after a little bit of astronomy discussion on the 6-shooter net earlier in the week. Anyway, enjoyed it a lot, but what are the references to the slides I keep hearing?
It's a secret. If we told you, we'd have to break the secret. Actually, though, Tom has a secret decoder ring. Tom, why don't you spill the beans?
Yeah, well, we found that astronomy, in a lot of cases, is a very optical type thing. So when we did constellations, we found it was very difficult to describe constellations over the radio. So we did a video stream. We're going to be in January going 10 years for Skynet. And most of those years we've had video for it. So if you ever go, if you want to follow along or find info, the live streams for the video, you can go to w5fc.org, which is the club website. Look for the link there. Or you just look for Skynet, DARC Skynet. Skynet's a popular word, so DARC, Dallas Amateur Radio Club, and Skynet, and you'll be able to find us on YouTube and on Facebook, and there's also another one, Twitch, although that one just kind of runs on its own, but it's there as well. Does that help? This is KE5ICX.
Kind of yes, kind of no. So I did find a YouTube with the Dark Skynet. I saw something like that, but I didn't notice it was syncing up. Maybe I've got this wrong. So w5fc.org, or what's the most direct route?
I would say that's the easiest. Just go to w5fc.org, and then on Saturday we posted sometime during the day, a few hours before the net, and you'll find the links there. The one you want is the video link, and that will take you there. There's also, especially when it comes to the slides, those are produced as PowerPoints, and so we just broadcast those out as well. So that'd be the easiest way to see them. We do have hot links in there as well, but not for the slides. It's just too much work.
So the direct video link at w5fc.org, is that it? And 0MD.
Yep, that's it. Go there and just click on the direct link, and it'll take you to where you need to be.
enjoyed it much. Thank you. I'll be back next week. And 0MD.
Okay, you're welcome. Anytime. Bill, take it away. This is KE5ICX.
Well, Ed, you can stick around for Afterglow if you want to hear about a science fiction movie from 2016. So this is N5BB starting the Afterglow net officially at 10:36 p.m. And since nobody else jumped in, I'm going to be net control. And we do this in several stages. First, I asked Tom to give a synopsis of the movie, which he grudgingly does. And then we have check-ins, and I will ask you whether you've seen the movie and what your name and location is. And then we will talk about individually the plot, the characterization and related things, and then anything else we need to do. And this usually takes us up to nearly midnight, believe it or not. It's always an hour and sometimes an hour and a half. Anyway, so here we go. This is N5BB Afterglow Net, run by the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Tonight we're talking about Midnight Special, a 2016 science fiction movie. Tom, can you give us a synopsis? Over.
Yeah, I can, Bill. This is actually from Wikipedia, and it's a pretty good description. It says, in a motel, Roy Tomlin and his friend Lucas watch an Amber Alert for an 8-year-old Alton Meyer and his reported abductor, Roy, while the boy reads on the floor. At the ranch, a religious cult in rural Texas, Pastor Calvin Meyer dispatches 2 of his parishioners to retrieve Alton. He then faces his congregation as the FBI storms their church. NSA communications analyst Paul Seaver asks Calvin how numbers sent via encoded satellite transmissions made their way into his sermons. Calvin explains that Alton speaks in tongues and gave the numbers to Calvin. As Alton's powers grew, his mother Sarah abandoned him, and members of the ranch have been raising him with Pastor Meyer as his adoptive father. It's also noted that this sequence that Roy is Alton's biological father. After a violent confrontation with a state trooper, Roy and Lucas seek cover at the home of Eldon, a former ranch member. During the night, an earthquake seems to wake Roy and Lucas. When they break down the door to Alton's room, they find him linked to Eldon by blinding beams of light directly from his eyes into Eldon's. Roy knocks out Eldon and covers up Alton, who is extremely photosensitive. They take Eldon's van, and continue toward a location that Alton specified. Members of the ranch seem to know his location, but the FBI is desperately trying to figure out where the trio are headed. When they stop at a gas station, Alton seems to destroy a satellite, creating a rain of debris crashing down on them. They drive to Sarah Tomlin's house, and she's overjoyed to be reunited with her son. After they watch the news together, Alton explains that he caused the satellite to crash because the police were using it to track him. As the fugitives, now including Sarah, continue their track, Alton appears to be growing sick and weak. He convinces Roy to let him see the daylight while Lucas and Sarah go ahead to the motel. After witnessing his first sunrise, Alton's eyes begin to glow and an enormous dome of light surrounds the duel. They reunite with Lucas and Sarah, and Alton is healthy. He explains that seeing the sun helped him realize his true identity. He explains that there would be a world built on top of this one and that he belongs to it. Roy confirms that he briefly saw this hidden world inside the dome of light. When they exit the hotel room, they are ambushed by Calvin's trackers from the ranch, who abduct Alton, but soon captured by the police. The boy is taken to a government facility where, although he is not a normal way of knowing who the man is, he still insists that he will talk only to Paul Sheaver. After Sheaver experiences Alton's powers, he helps reunite him with his parents. Having deduced their destination from Calvin's sermons, Saver warns the fugitives that there is a 5-mile security perimeter around the location on the Florida Panhandle. Roy barrels through the roadblock, driving inside the perimeter as Army scrambles to chase them. As they speed away, Alton lets them know just where to stop. Alton and Sarah speedily exit the car and run into the woods. Roy and Lucas lead the Army on a wild goose chase, while Alton and Sarah reach the edge of the swamp. There, a great dome of light appears, engulfing much of Florida and the surrounding states. Everyone inside the dome of light can see the futuristic structures of a parallel world. Eventually, other beings of this world gather around Alton, and the entire dome disappear, taking Alton with it. Roy and Lucas are arrested. Lucas is interviewed by the FBI. He tells them the story, but they are dissatisfied. Seaver then enters the interview with him, with Lucas, and the only one aware of Seaver's previous involvement. Sarah, apparently walking away from her past life forever, cuts off her cult traditionalist hair braid in a local gas station. Roy, incarcerated and wearing an electroencephalographic device, watches the sunrise as his eyes glow faintly. And that's it. That's the story. Back to you, Bill, KE5ICX.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. Okay, let's now do check-ins. Again, please give me your call sign, your name, and I really don't need your location. Just your call sign, your name, and whether or not you saw the movie. This is N5BB looking for RF check-ins.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Ellis.
Hold on, Tony. You don't get out of it that easy. Did you see the movie?
Yes, I did. NT5TM.
Thank you. Who's next?
Whiskey 5. Echo Bravo Bravo. David in Dallas. Yes, I saw it.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu Whiskey, J, and wherever it is, out of film.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda, and I saw the movie.
Oh, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom in Louisville. Yeah, of course I saw it.
Okay, let's pause there. In addition to Tony, I'd like to recognize David, W5EBB, Jay, KG5BZW, Brenda, WB50ZL, Tom, KE5ICX. All of you, plus myself, saw the movie. I'm looking on Echolink. Joe, KG5ZMG. Did you want to check in? KG5ZMG, this is N5BB. Are you there, Joe? I guess not. That's all the Echolink possibilities. Do we have any other people that would like to check in to the Afterglow net? The movie we're talking about tonight is Midnight Special, a 2016 science fiction movie. Do we have any last check-ins? This is N5BB, Net Control. Well, I guess not. Got kind of a small team here tonight. And I'm going to go by the order in which you checked in. So, Tony, NT5TM, what'd you think about the plot of this flick. This is in 5BB.
Well, darn it, I was hoping you were going to go in a kind of a random order, because I didn't really want to talk first, but I'll do my best. The plot was intriguing. I was particularly interested by the repeated references to Friday, March 6th. That could have referred to March 6, 1981, or March 6, 2000, or March 6, 2020, although no one was wearing a mask. But then again, the movie came out in 2016, so they would not have known about why we would be wearing masks. I was really impressed by how thoroughly at the beginning of the movie everything looked so old. Old CRT televisions, old cars painted with primers, old ugly dresses, old wallpapers, old kitchens. I'm pretty sure the movie was meant to take place sometime between 2016 and 2020, but they really did have a great effect of kind of whiplashing forward from cult time to modern times. So that was kind of neat. That was a neat part of the plot. The suspense built well. Things were kind of mysterious and strange. I was particularly happy, though, that so many movies, no matter where they're set, really seem to take place in Southern California. But this movie takes place in places I often drive. Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas, the Florida Gulf Coast. Perhaps tiny bits of Mississippi. The Panhandle of Florida. I was so happy that for once we didn't have a movie set entirely in LA with thin veneers of, hey, look, I've photoshopped a building from Colorado into the LA skyline. See. But yeah, I love the pine trees and the highways, and so a lot of the elements of the plot just felt good or natural to me. The suspense built very well, and their efforts to manipulate time were probably the best part of the plot to me. There really weren't any CRT TVs out there in 2016. I mean, they were all gone. So the thought of seeing an Amber Alert on I don't know what that was, like a 19-inch or 20-inch colored tube TV, that almost counts as a special effect. That wasn't something that happened, but it was a great kind of whiplash time effect. So really thought the plot was pretty well done. NT5TM.
Well, very good. Thank you, Tony. Now I'm going to go down the list. David, what did you think about the plot? W5EBB. This is N5BB, Afterglow.net.
Well, thanks, Bill. Well, I recommended this movie, so I better have liked it, and I did. I watched this movie for the first time in 2017, I think. It was on HBO, I believe. And it was very much like E.T. the Extraterrestrial, but in a more relatable humanoid form. The boy, Alton Meyer, it turns out, was technically an extraterrestrial, though only a few extra 100 feet above Terra, not from another galaxy. And Alton also had the same problem as E.T., in that he was getting sick, and he needed to return home to recover, otherwise he would die. And in the opening scenes, we see Alton sitting on the floor of the hotel room underneath a white bedsheet with a flashlight reading a comic book. And you can easily think back to the Halloween trick-or-treating scene where E.T. is wearing a sheet as a ghost costume walking down the street. And that has to be a tongue-in-cheek reference because he looked like he could have been E.T. until the sheet gets removed. And then you see it's just a little boy wearing swimming goggles and soundproof headphones. The ranch, led by Pastor Calvin Meyer, and they basically put all their eggs in one basket, believing this boy to be their savior. Whatever their religion was comprised of before Alton transitioned to something different, to be all about Alton once his powers became apparent. But, not only does the church want Alton, the government does too, and they use the ruse that it was firearms purchases as the reason why they raided the ranch, when in reality the government wanted the boy too because of his ability to decrypt classified satellite transmissions, and they thought he might be a weapon. Now, there's a lot of numbers in this movie, mainly the coordinates, but a lot of other numbers throughout the movie too. But how did they decode the coordinates of the time and place where Alton needed to be? What was the pattern? How were they decoded? Well, that's kind of left as an exercise to the viewer, if there's enough information to figure that out. I can see how Paul Sevier, the NSA guy, could have deduced the likely latitude and longitude pairing given their road trip path across the U.S., but that's not what Paul did. He said, I decoded the same patterns you found in the sermons. I'm not sure what pattern deduction alone could be done just using the numbers. So there's lots of fun to be had for OCD numerologists in this movie. Another sort of plot element that leaves you hanging was when all four of them were in the SUV and Alton has a fit and has to get out of the SUV to get on the shoulder and retch, and the grass turns brown. And then they run off. He runs off with Roy, but they never agree with Lucas and Sarah where they would meet up, And maybe that's just an unspoken understanding that Alton is able to just know these things, like what motel and room they would meet up in later, just like Alton knew about the underground cavern where he and Roy hid out for the night. Roy asked him, how did you know this was here? And Alton said, I didn't. Now, Jeff Nichols was the writer and director of this film. He's done some pretty interesting movies. He's not very prolific, but he reportedly wrote this movie as a reflection on becoming a father. And that is certainly the primary plot and character motivation, the degree to which the parents and Lucas would go to protect Alton, whisking him off to this designated time and place, all other considerations, legal or illegal, notwithstanding. And in the end, ultimately, like E.T., this movie was about love. Here it was about the love of the parents for the child, safeguarding him, protecting him, even if it meant having to let him go. And it's not unlike Blade Runner 2049 in that regard, when Joe asked Deckard, how could he have abandoned his child? And Deckard said it was his job to disappear. Sometimes to love someone means you have to be a stranger. W5EBB.
Well, very good. Thank you, David. Next, let's go to Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, what did you think about the plot of this movie? This is in 5BB.
Jay, KG5BZW on Echolink. Well, KG5BZW stole my thunder of really kind of what I was thinking when I saw the film. Not that it was, necessarily a bad thing or anything, but yeah, lots of E.T. references, and it really was just, E.T. in human form with a few other twists. But the twists were interesting, and it was enjoyable. Just, I knew this was going to be a film where it was going to be a mystery, and a lot of stuff was pretty much going to be left out, and it really wasn't likely that there'd be enough, logically speaking, to, figure out what was going to go on or how. It was really I felt a little bit like, this is kind of an activity of trying to figure out where the authors are going to take it more than, figuring out how the story would actually play out, if you could even say how it would actually play out, because of, under what rules that actually, you can say that. But, no, it was a fun, maybe fun's not the right word, interesting film. Feel like interesting just seems to underplay its enjoyableness, and fun seems to, misrepresent. So, I don't know, just don't have a thesaurus in front of me, and I'm a little bit tired, so, let me see what else to say. I mean, I did actually enjoy the cold exploration. That you know, it's good. The thing that's kind of interesting about the film, this is a film where you go watch the film and you kind of discuss where they could have gone, and you know, the cold bits where you know they basically were given a supernatural boy or super fantastical boy, whatever, and they you know, it's kind of interesting to think how things could happen if, you know, if you could kind of get on the edge of known, how you put this, maybe not something as super fantastical as you know, this kid that happened to be, I would have, God, I'm getting myself distracted by, my point being is just, there had something that's just basically, effectively magic to us, and how they would take it. That's where I was trying to go. Let me reset. Yeah, okay, now it's Echolink registry. Oh, and there's a number of other things to kind of, it's definitely thought-provoking. I'll just leave it at that. And I don't know, I've kind of woken up since 10:30, so maybe I'll be able to stay around for the rest of the net, but we'll see. All right, KQ5EGW, back to that.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Next, let's go to Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think about the plot of Midnight Special? This is in 5BB, Afterglow Net.
This is WB5OZL. Well, I pretty much like this movie. It wasn't perfect, but it kept me entertained, kept me engaged, and I thought the storytelling was good. It moved along, and it wasn't as vague as so many movies that we've seen where you don't know what happened. Unfortunately, this movie was a horrible flop at the box office, and I'm not sure why. Because it had a lot of good elements in it. Let's see. It's kind of unusual. Most movies, you know, it's like one of the standard plots, but this one was just a little different, I thought. And wasn't too much in it that was hard to understand. I thought that was okay. I kind of wish that they had explained why the kid had these powers, you know, and that was just such a mystery. And then he had to go off and join this alien race, and I would have liked to have had more detail on that, but oh well. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Yeah, very good point, Brenda. Okay, now let's talk to Tom, KE5ICX. What did you think about the plot, Tom? This is in 5BB, Afterglow Net.
Oh, thank you, Bill, for doing the net this evening. I liked it. I really did. Now, we've had this kind of story before. It is a science fiction, almost trope. We've had, what was it, Man Who Fell to Earth. We've had E.T. We've had versions of this with an individual who is different or aside from everyone else. And Eldon is one of those characters. But what I thought was interesting about it first was how it played out. It was still a mystery to all of us. We didn't know exactly what was going on until close to the end. And then they explained to us he's from, I guess, another dimension, from a different place, but still Earth. It wasn't from outer space. He was from here. And potentially either it could be a time issue, but I think... let me back up and say this. One of the things that was interesting is when we saw the other city or the other world, everything was elevated. It was above ground, and they said, wow, it's 200 feet above where we are. And I guess they meant that literally. They are, even though I don't think they occupy the same exact space at the same time. Somehow or another, they do not. So that part was a little bit too obvious, I think, in how they described it. But that's okay. I didn't mind it. The evolution, potentially, of mankind and what happens. I mean, we're looking at the bigger part of this, and that might have been it. And the fact that they could I guess, was it telekinesis, the ability to, through thoughts, be able to manipulate matter, which is what happened with the satellites. That was a thing. And that maybe he had slipped through, or maybe he was the evolution. His father had some of this, so there was some DNA part of this, and maybe they existed beforehand. I guess in a way I'm not overly upset about the fact that we don't know the origins of this, because how are you able to know the origins of a lot of things? Let me reset. We talk about one of the most mysterious things was the Ebola virus and where it's come from. Where is it? Where does it exist? Why does it exist? Why does it show up at the weirdest times? I mean, that's an example of the unknown that's very difficult to track down. Of course, we've got COVID, that's another example, but this one, probably, Ebola is even a more mysterious thing. So what about a person? Why couldn't a person, or the existence of something? He just discovered, what was it? A new species of fish, I think? I don't know. Something like that. There's a lot of things that we don't know anything about that we discover almost on a daily basis. Today we had a report of 2 new galaxies we didn't know existed that was on Skynet. So there's a lot of things we don't know, and I think that this could be one of those things that we could slip in. I agree with David. I think one of the better parts of this, and this may fall under characterization, but is the fact that it's about love more than anything else. I thought that was what worked. Characters obviously cared for each other, the father and the son, and even the mother. I think that they showed compassion and fortitude, and they were trying to fix things that had gone wrong, too. What do you do? Especially when the character, the boy, is so scary, Eldon. How are they supposed to be able to hold it together? And they managed to, above and beyond anything else, which I thought was pretty cool. Other elements of it, I like the nighttime thing. I thought that was pretty cool. Somehow or another, the camera and the cinematography in this was quite good. And there's just something about it that was nice. And maybe it was that nighttime stuff. I don't know. But it seemed to work in a most interesting way, and it clicked. I go back and watch it. It's a slow-moving movie. There's no doubt about it. It takes longer, and there's long pauses, which is always a danger in any film. But I think that they were able to pull it off, and it was fascinating watching the characters interact in a way that trying to solve the mystery. I have no problems with watching a movie that unfolds at a slower pace. I'm getting slow myself, and maybe I was slow and maybe I'm getting slower. But I don't need everything blowing up and people, punching each other out, although we had elements of that too, but they were few and far between. I don't need that. Tell me a story. Tell me about the characters. Allow it to evolve into something different, and give me a conclusion that I can be satisfied with. Maybe not the average audience, I don't know. I was satisfied with it. I was perfectly happy with the way it ended. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think David made a good choice on this one. I thought it was a little different, although it did do one of our tropes. But even still, I think it did really well. That's it for my rambling this round. Back to you, Bill, KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom. This is Wally Ballou describing the slow talkers of America. The Bob and Ray show. If you remember that, if you're old enough to remember all that old stuff. Anyway, a really great thing that started on radio and moved to TV. Bob and Ray, the Slow Talkers. Anyway, okay. Now it's my turn. Before I say anything, though, do we have any late check-ins to the Afterglow net? We're talking about the 2016 sci-fi movie Midnight Special. Does anybody else want to check in? This is N5BB, Net Control. Nope, I think we've sucked out all the people we can. So let me talk. Let me see. Tony made some comments about seeing CRT monitors, and I just can't remember that. I know that later in the film, when they were in the government facility, and Alton, the boy, was in the chair, and they were all talking to him from that separate room through the glass panel. They definitely had LCD flat-screen monitors, looked pretty new. And I don't know, maybe there were some in the people's houses. I just can't remember, Tony. Maybe he can describe where he remembers seeing that. Some of the vehicles they were driving were not new, especially the old car they were driving. The movie was actually filmed in New Orleans area, the principal photography, starting in January of 2014, and it only took a month, I think, or two. So the things you see in the movie would have been dated from 2014 if they were things that were just naturally occurring, which is 7 years ago, but to me it didn't seem that old. I think they did nothing to make anything seem newer, and they were filming this over in Louisiana in some areas maybe where things may not have been nice and spick and span and new, so they kind of looked older. But I did kind of have the feeling that the movie seemed to me like maybe it should have occurred back in a decade earlier than it really did. Anyway, as far as some of the clothing, Tony, the cult members were all showing these, long women's dresses and everything. They were kind of the kind of things you think about for cult members in these separate, isolated cults. So I think that's the reason they were dressed like that. This is N5BB Afterglow Net. As far as the plot goes, the way that I viewed it, reading between the lines, because a lot of this stuff was left out. Either it was edited out when they made the cut of the movie, or they just decided not to describe it. But it seemed to me like Alton, the boy, that his mom and dad, I think, were both in the cult originally, because they mentioned that his dad had been brought into the cult when he was younger by his parents. And so I'm assuming that the mom and dad met and married while they were in the cult. And then the leader of the cult, as is the want sometimes, became kind of the spiritual father, the effective dad trying to be the father of the kids. But you can see the boy really didn't think much of that. He knew who his dad was, his biological dad. And evidently the mother, she just couldn't stay in the cult. She just couldn't get along with him. So she left the cult. She didn't leave her husband as much as she left the cult, I believe. And then finally, the boy's father decided that he had to pull the boy out of the cult because he didn't know what was going to happen. I was a bit dismayed by the extreme brutality and violence from the leaders of the cult, going out and blasting into their hotel room and shooting the people. That kind of bothered me. I don't know why they did that. I think, to me, it seemed like a bit of some gratuitous violence that I don't think was necessary. I don't think it advanced the film, and it kind of confused me. I didn't see the reason for it. This is Inside BB. In fact, I don't really know why they wanted to get the boy so badly, except maybe they thought he had some mysterious power. I don't know. They didn't really explain what the boy did without the goggles when his eyes lit up and this blue light came out. The people later said they learned something from the boy, but I don't really know what that meant. And I don't know if the boy had control over it, if it was uncontrollable. Later in the movie, when he is heavily stressed out, it seems to be a bit uncontrollable. But when he was in the cult, I don't know. That wasn't really explained, and I think they just didn't want to explain it. I was a little bothered at the end about the boy, although he obviously loved his parents. Didn't even really say goodbye to them. He just went over. I have to go back to them. He didn't explain that. And we didn't learn how he got there. Was he their natural child, or did they adopt him? That wasn't explained. I don't remember it being explained whether he was born from that mother or not. If anybody else heard about that, I'd like to know. Anyway, I kind of liked the movie. I've seen it, or at least parts of it, years ago. But again, parts of it kind of perplexed me. And I think some of the things I'm perplexed by, maybe one of the reasons it didn't have a very good box office showing, because it was kind of confusing to people, you know? He wasn't from space. He was from some alternate universe, and they could see it and they couldn't see it. And he kind of exploded a nuclear weapon, but he didn't. And things appeared like an earthquake around him, but it wasn't all that bad. I don't know. There were a number of things like that to me seemed to be kind of thrown together haphazardly in the plot. So to me, the plot was a bit of a mess because of the way in which it was directed and the way it was written. So anyway, that's my feelings. Now, let's go and talk about the characterization. The characters, maybe the direction, things like that. And it's your turn, Tony. NT5TM, this is N5BB after Gwinnett. What do you think about the characterization, Tony?
In interesting. In general, I thought the characterization was interesting, although I did have a hard time telling people apart, it's sad to admit, just because there were so many similar men. As far as the CRT televisions, there was one around 17 minutes, 40 seconds. The first 20 minutes of the movie in general contains a number of CRT televisions, which contributed to kind of the old feel of the movie. The very first Amber Alert we see in the first couple minutes of the movie is displayed on a CRT, which is so weird and kind of anachronistic. I have, I'm watching this, I'm tired, it's Saturday night, I've had alcohol. I had a hard time keeping track of characters' names. Sometimes I can only remember them by their actor names, like Adam Driver. In general, I thought the characters were helping to move things forward, even though I couldn't really necessarily remember who they were. So I will pass this on to someone else who can give a more stronger opinion. But, positive. NT5TM.
Okay, thank you, Tony. By the way, I did not buy my first LCD television until around February the 1st, 2014. So when this film was filmed in early January 2014, at my house, I was looking at a large CRT television. So I don't know. I don't really think it was out of character for that time. I know there were televisions about CRT televisions around then because I was using one. Okay, let's move now to David, W5EBB. What do you think about the characterization, David? This is in 5DB.
Well, first of all, the CRTs, I think, now some of the sermons were dated 2010 and 2011, so it was sometime after that the characters are on their road trip. And now, remember, we're going through hotels, these cheap motels. If the TV still works, they're not just going to upgrade to LCD just because they're available. They're going to keep those old CRTs. And churches, many rural churches depend on donations for their furniture and TVs and whatever else. So it's not too surprising, and in fact, it's probably intentional that they put this antiquated technology in as props in some of these scenes. So I think it worked. It wasn't too abrupt to me. I didn't think. So characters. Okay, this is going to be sort of uncomfortable territory, but at the beginning of the movie, we hear the voiceover of breaking news for Central Texas, an Amber Alert for an 8-year-old boy abducted from his home near El Dorado, Texas. The mention of El Dorado is a big Easter egg, though a very pungent and rotten one. El Dorado was the nearest city to the Yearning for Zion Ranch. This is in real life. YFZ Ranch, 1,700 acres, the headquarters of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, FLDS, a community of about 700 people, and the compound was raided in April 2008 by Texas Child Protective Services. 462 children were removed, placed in temporary custody by the state, held at Fort Concho and San Angelo Coliseum. The children were interrogated, subject to examinations. Ultimately, 2/3 of the families returned to the ranch after the raid. Over the years, 12 men were indicted for various charges, assault and bigamy, not all of them members of the ranch. And in April 2014, the state of Texas seized physical and legal possession of the property as contraband being used for illegal activities. And in 2018, the ranch was sold off and closed. A very sordid affair from many angles, and it was only when I looked this up this week, El Dorado, I had forgotten about it, but then that jogged my memory. But it must have been what the writer-director Jeff Nichols was alluding to as the ranch in Midnight Special. So, enough of that. But I saw nowhere online where anybody made that connection, but it's very obvious to me. So there's a world built on top of ours. There are people there. They watch us. They've been watching us for a very long time. So the watchers, so what were they? So they were light, I guess as, maybe that is our fundamental form. You can hear Yoda saying, "What? Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter." I used to do that a little better. But, it might be the next evolutionary stage. Maybe Alton, got two recessive genes that combined and became a dominant gene, and he became one of these luminous beings, and he was perhaps going through puberty, and that was the next stage, and he had to get to that location, and at that time and that place. And, toward the end there, you see the family kind of getting together for the last time. And Alton says to Roy, he says, "You don't have to worry about me anymore." And Roy says, "I'll always worry about you, Alton. That's the deal." And then that leads to one of the more poignant scenes in the movie where they reach their designated spot, and Alton says, "Stop." And Alton and Sarah run off, and Roy instinctively turns and yells out the window to Alton, but all they can do is just nod, and then they're off. And Roy is devastated, and good acting in that scene, too. He looks like he's just in a state of shock, realizing that was probably the last time he would see his son. Or would it be? That final scene in the movie makes you wonder when Roy's eyes glow for just a second, as I guess he's watching the sunset. You wonder, what was that connection? Is there currently a connection? Was there some connection at that point, or was it just an indication that there is some trait in Roy that he passed on to Alton? A lot of speculation, but one of the things that kind of makes the movie a little interesting, that last little bit, because I think a good movie is supposed to make you think about it after you've seen it. It almost haunts you, when you reflect on it. It's like, I wonder what was really going on there. But anyway, I thought the characters were good. I think they were well acted. Even though it was a slow burn movie, things did move at a pretty slow pace, but it progressively built up. And I think it did it at a slow pace, but it kept you engaged. And I thought the acting was really good. And this Joel Edgerton as Lucas, he's Australian, but you wouldn't know it. He pulled off the Texas accent pretty well. And just a little trivia, he actually was Owen Lars in Star Wars 2 and 3, a very young Joel Edgerton. But all the other acting was really spot on, I thought. Good characters. W5EBB.
Okay, thanks, David. I'm looking at a website page written in 2018, and it says that video gaming things, they were still bringing in CRT TVs because they thought that the LCD ones had too slow response time. So, yeah, I don't know. I think CRTs were fine back then. Anyway, Jay, KG5BZW, what'd you think about the characterization? This is N5BB, Afterglow.net. Take it away, Jay.
KG5BZW here. As far as I know, it's really about, on your last comment, it's not about, when it comes to the CRTs, I think it's really about the old-style video games which were built to be used with CRTs. When you have the newer TVs, which are not built to be used with, the video in or channel 3 or 4 or whatever, and there's the whole process of encoding and not encoding but decoding basically, and then displaying and all that. There's always been, like with SDRs, there's a delay, and on a computer at least, it's harder. I actually have to compare an SDR that runs by itself to a live analog, but that kind of thing, I think, is what that was. Anyway, that's completely an off-topic thing, but okay, characters. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can say anything. Really hasn't been said. The whole theme, the whole main theme about love being the kind of a driving force here. And you got Roy and his son, but then you've also got Lucas and his friends, and Sarah and the husband, and it's well, heck, even what's his name? I mean, maybe a different type of love or whatnot, a desire to I don't know. It's like it borders on love, but not exactly. I'm thinking of when David. I'm looking at I have to look at it. IMDb. Let me see. Holden is the guy who had to do whatever rights the cult seemed to have do with Alton, and whatever passage of I don't know, prophecy or whatever the heck happens when you have the glowing eyeballs and all that jazz. Yeah, that. Oh God, I'm good. Ever sense of love or belonging or just like a good tasting or whatever. I mean, that might be horrible. But just that desire for something. Desire for something. Okay, yeah, it's just freaking desire. That's what that really just, yeah, I'm sorry. Strange choice of words there, but, yeah, sorry, that was a train wreck of a thing, but I thought each of the actors basically showed how devoted a little bit of their part to the film by showing that very well. Let's just put it that way. And really, I don't know what else to say because, yeah, it was kind of hard to remember the characters. But the distinctness of some of the characters, but each seems to have their own part. Let me see here before I send it off to the next person.
Okay, Jay, next it's Brenda's turn, W50ZL. Brenda, what did you think about the characterization of Midnight Special, our 2016 science fiction movie? This is the Afterglow Net N5BB Net Control. Take it away, Brenda.
Thank you, Bill. This is WB50ZL. Well, there were some real heavy hitters in this. That of course, the kid wasn't anybody you ever heard of, but a lot of the adult actors were really famous, seasoned actors, and they did very well. And the kid did extremely well for being a newcomer like this. So I thought it was cast pretty well. Boy, it's so Texan in so many ways. Their accents and the scenery and everything. I really enjoyed that. There's just so much, that the theory of some movie makers is we're not going to tell you everything. You have to figure it out on your own, or speculate, or interpret it yourself. So much unknown about this. Why is the kid like this, and what's his destiny, and what's going to happen next, and his poor dad being in prison. That's not right. And I could really see a sequel where he gets out. And in the end, his mother kind of comes into her own and shucks off the old religious cult. So good for her. But this family this is pretty traumatic. This would upset me if my kid just walk away. There's just a lot of grief there. But on the other hand, an awakening. The kid is going to his destiny, and everybody's kind of happy about that he's going to go where he's supposed to be, wherever that is, and whatever that means. They don't ever explain who these people are, or why their cities look so strange, or why they coexist with us. That's really kind of odd. That's not in our science books. But it makes for an interesting story. All right, back to that, WB50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Now it's time for Tom, K5ICX. Tom, what did you think about characterization? This is N5BB, the DARC Afterglow Net.
Well, thank you, Bill. Boy, I don't know what else to add at this point as far as characterization was concerned. I thought the kid was very convincing. I thought it was quite good. He was understanding and at the same time somewhat aloof because he didn't really belong, even though he apparently loved his parents, but in the end he loved being that alien thing with people like him, which is sort of what you would expect from any kid, if you feel like you're alienated or somehow different from others, that you're going to gravitate towards someone. That's a stretch, but that would make sense, some of his behavior. I think the performance themselves were authentic. I didn't feel that any of it looked bad or didn't seem genuine in how they were depicted or performed. I really didn't. I think that I saw some of the reviews and they felt that it was lifeless in some ways. I disagree. Not everything has to be on screen with great angst. Not everybody has to act like William Shatner and every word is its own sentence. I think that you have to look at the subtleties and the ironies that go along with it. What do you do? How do you handle, this extraordinary circumstance? Like every other family does, you take it one step at a time and you figure it out. Unfortunately, in this case, you got a bunch of people following you from the government and everywhere else. But even then, they still tried to figure it out. So I thought overall the characters rang true. They were, to a certain extent, ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, at least when the child was revealed. Who knows what it took to get to that point and what caused them to finally, abandon the kid and the child never took it personally, just simply that it was different and dangerous at the same time. I don't know. It has a lot of interesting aspects to it. I think they're layered performances. I think there's layered personalities as well. And I think that they're relatable. Which means it's not lifeless in my view. I think that we could relate to each of those characters in some way, shape, or form, simply because of the circumstances that were extraordinary. But then that reveals underneath some of the personalities that of being human and the troublesome parts of it. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I'm having a little trouble kind of like putting my finger on exactly what it is that I really, really liked about the thing. I think it was the characters themselves and the performances given for those characters is what it is. And it's still kind of coalescing in my mind. I watched it last night, and I was thinking about it today, and I think this is one of those films that's going to take me a few days to actually kind of really come to a final conclusion about it. But I thought it was a thoughtful film. I thought it was thoughtful characters. So I can't go much deeper than that. One thing that was amazing is Sam Shepard as the preacher, as the minister in this thing. I didn't recognize that as Sam Shepard. He sounded familiar, but it's like this is Sam Shepard. Anytime I've ever seen Sam Shepard in anything, I think of Sam Shepard and his mustache, Starry, and there was no mustache, so there was no Sam Shepard either. So I thought that was quite interesting, but it was, I think, his last performance before he died. But it was quite well done, even though it was a small part. I really enjoyed it. Okay, back to net, KE5I6.
Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB, net control for the Afterglow net. Just in case anybody's out there, does anybody want to check in late? This is N5BB. Well, just occasionally we get the really late check-ins, but I don't see anybody popping up. Okay, I guess my final comments. Well, characterizations. I kind of agree with Tom. I think that the actors gave pretty good performances through this. I believed all of them. And it was interesting for me to see, I guess, the direction that the director gave to the kid, Alton. He played it with a mixture of love for his parents, but he also was a bit cold and standoffish, especially toward the end of it. And when, in fact, all the way through it, he was a little bit, he would kind of sit in the room by himself and was kind of isolated from everything going on around him, even though it all revolved around him, but it's like he was ignoring it for a while, which is a little bit strange to me, but I think they were trying to make that part of his character. I think that was intentional, trying to make him seem a little bit non-human. So I guess the thing that really, the big question I have is, was he human? Like I said before, was he born to that mother, or was he adopted by them? And I didn't see any clear answer to that, and if somebody else made a comment about that, I missed it. So the question is, if he doesn't belong there, how did he get there? Why did he get there? And I don't know. That bothers me a lot. So I guess that's one of the reasons why I think the movie kind of appears to be confusing. And some of that's characterization, because you can't really understand who he is, He doesn't come in from space or somewhere else. He just seems to, and it isn't clear about whether he had those powers as a baby. Who knows? We aren't even told. So it's a little bit more of a movie where they're kind of purposely throwing these people into a situation. They're throwing these premises in front of us, but they don't feel like they have to explain the backstory. So I don't know. That's what bothers me about it, and the characterizations. They're not giving us very much of that backstory, even from his parents. We kind of guess that they were both somehow got into that cult, and then they both left. The father, obviously, at the end, taking his son with him. But that whole relationship between them and the cult isn't really explained very well. This is in 5BB. And we don't really understand whether the boy liked or disliked being in the cult. What did he think about it? That's not very clear at all either. And how long has he known that this date was coming up in March? I don't know. So I don't know. That's what bothers me a bit about a lot of this, is that although this movie is a little bit of a snapshot. It's like you bring in the newsreel cameras, and here's what's happening. But you don't get a lot of backstory on how they got there and where they're from and anything. So they purposely did it that way, but I think that may be why the movie wasn't as popular. So that's what I think about the characterization. It's fine for the current characterization and acting, but there's no backstory. Okay, that's all I got. Does anybody have any other things they'd like to throw in here at the end before we close the net? If so, please give your call sign only. I'll take a list of people. So looking for a list of people who want to make some more comments. This is N5BB Afterglow Net.
WB50ZL.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
W5EBB.
Okie dokie. I'm going to go in that order. If I wrote it down correctly. WB50ZL. Go ahead, Brenda. This is N5BB.
WB50ZL. The plot synopsis in Wikipedia explains a lot of the questions that we've been asking. It says here that Roy is Alton's biological father, but he, it says as his powers grew, his mother Sarah abandoned him, and the members of the ranch have been raising him with the pastor as his adoptive father, which I find extremely bizarre. And she comments at some point that the dad had to stand by for 2 years and watch another man raise his son. And that was a little bit vague. I thought maybe she had remarried or something, but apparently it's this pastor. So, that was kind of weird. I think the kid was really attached. He obviously was very fond of his family, but he didn't relate to them very well. They didn't talk about things or joke around or, I don't guess he went to school. I don't know. He was just a very strange kid that just didn't seem to be really connected to the world and to his parents. Back to that, WB50ZL.
Okay, Brenda. Yeah, I know. I saw that in the Wikipedia thing. But the problem is, I think what they did is just copy nearly verbatim what the cult leader said, the pastor, when they interviewed him. When they were interviewing him, that's what he said. I don't think that's the reality. He said the mom abandoned her kid. But I think that was from his point of view or from the church's point of view. The way I kind of thought about it, since the mom was very happy to see both the kid and the father, is I thought that she just decided she could not live within the cult, and it took a while for the father to get to the point where he could leave and pull his son out. But the whole relationship between the parents and the cult wasn't very obvious. They didn't make their thoughts known. Did they hate the cult? Did they love it? Did they feel sad they pulled out of it? Not too clear. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Tony, your turn. NT5TM and 5BB. What'd you think?
Well, I really appreciate you and Brenda talking in much better depth, and David too, about characterization. That was not something I thought of as deeply as perhaps I should have, so I really liked hearing other people's comments. Instead, I have a very superficial but nevertheless very accurate comment to make. Mixing! This movie, even though I did kind of enjoy a feeling of past to present as we went from these old cult settings with piles of paper and old TVs into the modern world with night vision goggles and Humvees and whatnot, there was kind of this neat past to present thing going on. There was this thing about being a completely modern movie, and unfortunately, the essence of a completely modern movie is the dialogue is mixed very low and the music is mixed very loud. So early in the movie, we hear dialogue that is very hard to understand. It's almost whispered, and the urge is to turn the volume up louder and louder and louder, and then kaboom! The dynamic range of this movie was not well suited to home stereo equipment. It was a little frustrating and unpleasant for me, because again, low dialogue and then enormously loud music. NT5TM.
Well, very good, Tony. Good point. David, W5EBB. You got some philosophical or some theological comments for us, David, or do you have something totally different? W5EBB and 5BB.
No, just pretty superficial. Maybe a little tangential one thrown in right at the last. But, Alton, yeah, he was very standoffish, kind of in his own little world. Probably had, Asperger's or similar. But, obviously a kid who could decode and hear encrypted messages and radio waves coming in, there's something special about that kid. And of course he's going to be different, and he's not going to have any peers. And, certainly at the end, he does seem to have this superiority complex, but all the adults are deferring to him because he's the smartest one in the bunch, and he knows it and they know it. So, they're just deferring to his judgment on what they needed to do next, because he could look ahead. He could see all the outcomes that were potentially could occur, and he chose the best fit, the best chance of success, that to get him where he needed to be at the time he needed to be there. So one plot item I thought was rather funny I wanted to mention was after the satellite had been taken down by Alton, leaving a 60-mile swath of debris, the media has to say something. And the next day we hear on the TV the cover story that a Canadian company is taking one for the team. We don't know that, but they're taking one for the team to claim that it was their weather satellite that fell, not a super secret, nuclear detonation detector satellite. So $18 million budget. Pretty good movie for that amount of money. And yeah, the soundtrack was not so great. There was no music. It was just droning synthesizers and two-note arpeggios for most of it. It was more of a soundscape than music. But there was a lot of attention to detail in the sets and the choice of props. March 6th, that's kind of an Easter egg. It showed up in the school in the back of the room where the pastor is initially being interrogated, and you see a handwritten sheet that says Science Fair Project sign-up due Friday, March 6th, and that was the date also when Alton had to be in his spot. And now, as for which Friday of March 6th, well, the date's written on FBI whiteboard indicating the year was 2011 for some of the sermons. So that next year with a Friday, March 6th would be 2015. So that was the date. The movie was actually shot in primary photography, or the main filming was 2014. It was released in 2016. So that would also align with just the real time, 2015. So I like the appearance of the world on top of ours. The patina of the lower concrete buildings, the lower concrete blocks on the buildings look like they were cleaned maybe the last time I cleaned my oven, a few centuries ago. And you get the sense that they're extremely energy efficient, maybe using wind, solar, perhaps stealing our amateur radio electromagnetic wave energies, causing bad propagation. So it had both a modern look and also an ancient look. And why that place? Well, because it had that walkway that linked the upper world to our world, or you might call it a Jacob's Ladder. There it is, Bill. My theological add-in, W5EBB.
Okay, David, this is N5BB. I didn't hear anybody talk about the name Midnight Special, which, of course, is a song, old song, actually, but also supposedly the song is a throwback to a kind of a folk idea that that was a train, and if the light from the train fell on you, something special was going to happen. I think it had to do with prisons or something. I don't know. But the name of the movie didn't seem to have anything to do with what actually happened. I think it probably was a little secret Easter egg by the director, the writer, or something that they didn't share with us. But anyway, I don't know. Mixed feelings about this. Okay, I guess we're stopped then. Tom, what's going on next week? This is N5BB.
All right, thanks, Bill, and thanks for taking the net this evening. Next week's movie is Dreamscape from 1984 with Dennis Quaid. He's about 12 in this, and he's 109 now, so you can imagine it's an old movie. It looks pretty good. Psychological science fiction thriller. Back to you, Bill. Oh, well, you know the whole thing, so just look for it in the usual places. I'll send it out. KE5ICX.
Very good. I am closing this net at 11:52 p.m. Woohoo! We beat the bewitching hour by 12 minutes. What a deal. We got significant rain over here this afternoon near DFW Airport in Irving. You probably got some too. See you later. This is N5BB. Good night.
Good night, Bill and